How you doing, guys? What's happening? So, as you've probably seen as of late, my channel has been a lot more active. I've been uploading vocal covers again for the first time in years, and generally getting back into pace a lot more. The last couple of weeks, I have had such an increase in just this positive side of life than I ever have before. And I mean, 4 months ago, I was diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder. And then a couple of weeks ago, I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress. The two of them combined together is just a weird recipe. And I mean, there are side effects that I have suffered with that I focus more on than I do anxiety as a whole. And they really consist of brain fog. So, if you don't know what brain fog is, it's short-term memory issues, focus and concentration issues, generally getting confused on a regular basis. It's, I suppose, in a way, you're not yourself anymore. And not only that, I've also suffered with the side effect that some people don't know the name of it. They just know it's there and it's happening, and they spend a long time researching what it is. But I found it out to be something called derealisation. You get two. There's depersonalisation or derealisation. You can probably have both or one of the other. God, I'm making anxiety sound like a pick and choose scenario. So mine was derealisation, and it is the sense of that you are, if you remember your dream, it doesn't matter which one, but when you're in that dream, nothing's, obviously because it isn't, but nothing seems real. Now, take that into daily life, a realistic daily life where you literally feel nothing is real. And that everything's just this really, really messed up dream. So, after being given that diagnosis, I went into this spiral of being completely out of control. And I remember very clearly, I remember it happening. It was this sense of, right, I've got brain fog and derealisation. So I did what most people would do that shouldn't do, and that is go to Dr. Google for advice. Guess what Dr. Google diagnosed me with? Alzheimer's. I freaked big time. And I went to the doctors for blood tests. I had memory tests. I was meant to have a CT scan. I was just all out freaking out. And it was terrifying. Because someone in a normal situation would go, they wouldn't even think of having Alzheimer's. They'd just move on from it. If they felt a bit of derealisation, or if they felt like they were struggling to remember but didn't have anxiety. Now, take into effect anxiety being a mental disorder, which is not only depression, but it's worry, it's absolutely everything. Overstimulated and going 10 to the dozen, which causes attacks. That are closely linked to heart attacks. Well, meaning they share very similar symptoms. which is why every time people have an anxiety attack, sometimes they end up going to hospital because it can be that real, they think they're dying. And I've had one. I've had several, actually. The majority that I have these days are very minor. It's just a bit of shortness of breath and rapid heartbeat. There's no pain. There's no sense of feeling like you're about to die. So it can affect many people in different ways. But yeah, going back to it, think about overthinking those emotions that you have Alzheimer's. That multiplying by about 100 and you are almost convinced you do. Now, mine stems from not only anxiety, but the fact that my nan has it. But my nan's has now turned into dementia. Probably closely linked to being the same thing, to be honest, but I don't know that much about it to know. I've seen it from my nan's perspective, and I visit my nan and I see the kind of condition she's in, and my God, it is terrifying to think that someone can go to that level. Now, I, in the end, combated this Alzheimer's thought, but it always still lingered around thinking, my God, I actually thought that. My God, I was utterly convinced that that's what it was. And honestly, it scared the hell out of me. It really did. So over the last 2 months, 2.5 months, because I was freaking out so badly and not knowing enough about my health to actually understand what was going on, I just turned very angry, very bitter, and threw everything at everyone around me. I shut people out. I just lost it. I really did. And it probably doesn't happen to everyone, but some people sometimes just don't understand the situation they're in. Now, knowing anxiety can't actually kill you is reassuring enough, but it can and it can't. It can't in the fact that it's never killed anyone to a degree, but sorry guys, I had a storage notification there, so we cut the video off. Yeah, it's had its elements of anxiety. Has never been one to kill anyone, so to speak, but it's a contributing factor to, unfortunately, suicide, as well as the very high majority of mental illnesses up there. So, with that, I became very bitter, I became very angry and was pushing everyone away around me. I was acting out in a lot of anger, and it wasn't just one or two people, it was near enough everyone around me. So about 2 weeks ago, after going through months of brain fog, derealisation, anxiety and depression, I realised I had to turn my life around and get back up, boost myself back up, and find a way back into the norm, whatever the norm is. And to a degree I have. It's took a long time to actually get there. The fight was hard. It wasn't easy at all. But I did it, and I became myself again, and I got back into music. I was recording songs today, but unfortunately my vocal range just isn't enough for the songs that I want to perform, so I'm going to leave today and figure out something better, then go back to it eventually. So I thought I'd stick out this video today. There was a period last week where um, I went back downhill. Well, there were two occasions actually. Um, the first one was I was just fed up. I had had enough. I had had enough of anxiety. I had had enough of derealisation and brain fog. I was having problems just in general life, and I wanted out. I wanted out, and I attempted to end it. Now, it was a click in my head that made me realise that what I was about to do was utterly stupid, that made me stop, and I stopped. And I phoned up Wellbeing Matters and the Samaritans, and I encouraged myself back out of it with the help of them guys. And I told no one about it until, well, I think I told my mum. That was about it, up until about a few days later when I knew I was in the clear. And then once I was in the clear, that's when I spoke out a bit more. The second event was I found a lump last Friday. Again, I freaked out, but then instantly told no one. I just couldn't bring myself to speak. But this time, there was no one that knew until the Sunday. And the only reason it was held until the Sunday was because I built up this massive amount of pressure in my head where I wasn't telling anyone, and the fear was growing. Now, this wasn't anxiety, or there weren't much brain fog to it, or derealisation, or even general paranoia. I had spoke on the Friday to 111. They said it could have been one of two things, one being piles or hemorrhoids. The second one was a form of anus cancer. Well, that's where it was. So, you know. Naturally, I freaked out, and I was right to, because talking to a doctor I was talking to on the late Friday night, he said, from what I was saying and from how I had explained everything, there was not enough evidence to suggest piles, and this lump was bear with me, on the canal, but on the inside, on the other side of it, on the outer side, so sort of like here, sticking in, and I was in constant pain. Well, still am. It hasn't gone away yet. And there was just more details to it, but I'm not getting into it. And as well as that, there was blood. So they said it was really hard to actually. He couldn't say for sure, so I don't actually know why he said it in the first place. But between the anus C word and hemorrhoids, this one being hemorrhoids, it was more like that. And he said he had to be honest with me because from what I was explaining, the symptoms were there for it. And I freaked the hell out. My fear just started to rise big time. Everything just started going wrong again. But I told no one. Saturday, it was getting worse. It was building up far, far more. And I was struggling to cope. I couldn't think straight. I think I brought. No, I was recording some music that day, and I just had to stop. I couldn't do it. The focus wasn't there. The performance anxiety had kicked in because I just couldn't think about it. I couldn't think about the want to actually perform. I was just thinking, oh my God, have I got cancer? But then I was out that night and I thought, well, if I'm out, maybe it'll get better. Maybe the anxiety side wouldn't be there, the fear levels would calm down, and just being with someone would take my mind off it. No, it didn't. It didn't. It spiraled completely out of control, and I do remember I was lying in bed that night and I just shot up gasping for air, or moved quite quickly needing air. Now that night I was with, well then, my partner. And I'll get to well then in a second. And she was like, "You alright? You okay?" And I was just kind of like, yeah. I can't remember what I said it was now, but it wasn't what I said it was. But I just couldn't bring myself to say anything. So then the Sunday, I was done in. I built up that much fear. I couldn't bring myself back up. It was physically impossible. And then me and my partner ended up separating because I just snapped. Everything had just got that bad in my head that the fear was up there. This constant fear that I had a terminal illness was up there, and there was issues within my relationship at the time, and I just had enough. My brain had just kind of gone, fuck it. To say the least, that's all it had done. And I blasted out all this emotion, and it didn't make me feel better. It made me feel 100 times worse. Now, I couldn't figure out how, given the position I was in already, I could feel any worse. But I did, because I turned round to her and told her that I didn't want to be in the relationship anymore. I threw absolutely everything at her, and it caused me then to crash severely. The fear just went straight through the roof. The anxiety didn't even come. I thought it would have, but it didn't. Because you get to a point with anxiety where you know what it is, you notice it that much, you know when it's coming. And you know when it's there, you know when it's present, or you know if it's building. So that time it didn't build. There was nothing there other than pure outright fear. And there is a fine line between fear and anxiety. So Sunday night I was talking to a friend of mine and I told her everything. The girl I was in a relationship with at the time had gone to sleep, so I couldn't tell her because she wasn't awake. So I spoke to a friend of mine and told her near enough everything. And the group I have on Facebook, I then built up enough courage to tell all the admins on the admin chat, which is is a part of. So equally, she knew just as everyone else did after. Now, given with anxiety and given with the mounting fear and the general worry that everyone would just think, oh, he's having another anxiety episode, and a cancer scare being a very common theory to someone with anxiety, that it's not the first time, it sure as hell won't be the last, that someone thinks they have a terminal illness through anxiety. It happens all the time. But to actually be told by a GP that was on the phone to me at the time that is what it very much sounded like, over just basic problems down there. Telling people, I felt like they would judge me or just say, oh, you're just having an anxiety episode, it's not that bad. People have done it before and people will continue to. For someone that doesn't have anxiety, they don't know what it's like, in that sense of where everything is multiplied more and more. So their natural response is to be kind, but also just say, remember, you've got this anxiety issue going on. Try not to read too much into it because you're going to make yourself ill. But because 2 days before that I had already been told that that's what they thought it was natural for me to hit this response of having a major freak out. Which like I said, wasn't caused by anxiety. It was caused by this constant fear of being told I could potentially have a terminal illness and I needed to get to my GP fast. Monday morning comes and the page had received feedback from me and they were wishing their well wishes. And this was, I say Monday morning, it was yesterday morning. So 8 o'clock I phoned up my GP. Told them exactly what was going on and what had been said by 111. Now, normally my doctors will book appointments on Monday for Wednesday. They heard what I was going through. They had seen the paperwork or the online stuff, what 111 had submitted through. And they immediately gave me an appointment later that day. It was later on in the afternoon, but they couldn't get me in any sooner. But let's put it this way, they got me in the very same day, which was a massive surprise to me because I thought I'd have gone till tomorrow still worrying about it. Continued to freak out, and if an anxiety attack became more imminent or worse, then that's just the way it would have been. But no, they got me in the same day at around about 4, and that was from 8 o'clock in the morning. So I kind of had, I should have really, well, I did distract myself. I started doing all my music and stuff like that, and just took my mind off it. Got 2 songs onto the channel, which you'll see if you go onto the profile. But there was, while I was recording, the fear was still very much there, and I was still very much thinking more about that than I was the actual songs. So vocally, I didn't sound great. 4 o'clock came and I went over to the doctor's. Got pretty much straight in with my doctor, explained everything to him, and he was all basically like, yep, I've seen the reports from 111. We're going to have a look here. There's a numerous amount of tests we want to do, so we'll get them done straight away. this is where it gets kind of interesting. Because I kind of knew he would want to do what you guys know as a prostate exam. And he did it, and he was like, oh, this will only take a couple of seconds, just kind of in and out. He must have been up there for nearly a minute. It's either that or it weren't that long, and I was just flipping. It was that mortifying, it felt like it was forever. But my God, the shock I was in. And there were 3 doctors in that room. I don't know if the 2 doctors were just watching this other dude do his job, or were learning, or God knows what. I have no idea, but there was a man, and there was 2 men and a woman. Now, the woman stayed the other side of the curtain throughout the whole thing, obviously, because that is kind of law within this country. The 2 blokes came in, and I've never felt not only ashamed and embarrassed, but flipping utterly mortified what had just happened to me. So anyway, they got that absolute humiliation out the way. I sat there in more agony than what I was when I started, and he just kind of said to me, yeah, there's nothing cancerous that I can figure out there. You have piles. So he gave me a load of, I can never say this word, suppositories, and they are, if not just as more uncomfortable as flipping having a random dude's finger in there. So I have been on them, no change as of yet, but let's put it this way, as soon as I figured out there was nothing, well, not figured out, but got told there was nothing terminally wrong, the relief that had come through, sorry guys, was insurmountable. It couldn't have been any better than that, knowing that I wasn't in any kind of danger. And yeah, I kind of picked myself back up from there, knowing that I wasn't ill. But after having 2 or 3 days of this fear build up, it was good to have that weight off my shoulders. Let me tell you, it was the heaviest weight ever. And I came back to being myself, and I found a way back. And it was incredible to know that I was back on the straight and narrow, and that my life wasn't in danger. So I went back home. I told everyone. I felt incredible. And I did a live stream for my support group that night, and generally had a laugh and spoke about all kinds of positive and, I guess in a sense, influential things. Went to sleep that night with no problem, and actually managed to get a good night's sleep. And I mean, Sunday into Monday, I didn't. I had a terrible one. Not only because of the fears, but because of knowing I had snapped at M and had to go out of fear that had nothing to do with mental health. But one thing I want to very much cover is, it is easy for someone to think, oh, he's just overthinking this because he has anxiety. A lot of people do it. But they truly do not understand anxiety. Or they've never suffered it enough to realise it from a generalised anxiety disorder stance from it. it's easy for someone to make a judgment based off something, but it was serious to the point for me where it was even on the computer when I went to the GP. That this doctor I had spoke to Friday night had this concern and was wanting to do all the tests to follow it up. And like I said, the tests were done and there was nothing that could pinpoint any form of cancer. So what you've got to remember is a cancer scare, doesn't matter what part of your body it is always going to be terrifying. It's always going to shake you up. And let me tell you now, I do hope if there is anyone that's going through that kind of scare, well, one, not only do I hope it isn't that, but two, a lot of people have been there, and please find support. If you are really that scared, find a support network and talk to someone. And if it turned out to be that you have all the support in the world coming for you, and the doctors will help, and there's stuff like cancer research that you can talk to, Samaritans, whatever your local mental health access service is. This is if you're UK based. I don't know how far cancer research covers, but there is always someone. Sorry, I'm really tired still today. I've had plenty of sleep and still feel exhausted. But there is always someone you can talk to, and don't ever feel like you're alone, because you're not. So, what's the plan from now? Now that I'm back to being myself, what do? Simple fact is, continue on with my music. And get back to enjoying life, because in the last few weeks I was back to being myself. I was enjoying things again and it was great. So I'm going to get back to that and remember that no matter what happens, you always have to look after yourself. You always have to keep yourself on the straight and narrow, otherwise you'll fall apart. Don't ever let yourself get to that point, guys. I've been there, I've done it, and I've pushed everyone away because of it. Don't go to that place. You don't want to be there. It's not a nice phase for anyone to be in. Because then you end up feeling like you have no one. You don't want that. You really don't. So always remember that you are not alone, whether it is an illness or mental health. I know that is categorised under an illness, but still. Always keep talking. Don't ever feel like you can't talk. And if you can't bring yourself to talk, write it down on paper. Write everything down and do something with it. Don't ignore it. Even if you have to give it to someone for them to read, then they can talk to you at a pace that you set. So be it. Do it. It will help so much. Please believe me on that. I didn't believe it myself, but it is true. There is always someone there for you. Always. So guys, thank you so much for watching. I've got to get back to doing some of the stuff, so this will be edited and uploaded by later on. And I'll see you again soon. More covers should be out tomorrow. So with any luck I can get it straight out. And I don't know what I'm covering yet, but we'll soon see. Alright then guys, thanks a lot for watching. Take care of yourselves. And bye bye for now.